And, and that leads us to the next question. Thanks, Jay. So let's see here. So we talked about the accelerating pace of innovation, right? So what is the impact for employees? You talked about big corporations also, are employees ready? And how do we shift, existing 9 to 5 employees, looking for job security as you speak in your book to, be maybe more, externally focused? And how do we do? Who's the future? What's the future of it for employees?
So we all have fresh in our mind the Great Recession Depression of 2008. The economy has recovered. Here's what people didn't realize. Unemployment's now down in the US or whatever. Of the Fortune 500 companies, they now employ over 1 million people less than they did in 2008. So they've recovered by being more efficient, and they'll be squeezing out more employees. Minimum wage going up right now. Starbucks just opened its first Starbucks with no employees. You use an app to say what you want, and a machine makes your frappuccino. If you think about it, machines are making it anyway. There's a human assembling what several machines made. One made the foam, one made the coffee, one made the ice, whatever. Now one machine does it all. So if you're not adding value, if you're not creating value, your job will be eliminated. Repetitive work. So let's just take a century view. In 1900, the majority of the United States, sorry I don't have global stats, but it's even worse globally, the majority, more than half of all people in the US, were involved in creating food, agriculture. It took half the population to feed the other half, and we didn't export any food. Today, 1.6% of the US makes food, and we export food to the rest of the world. So the tractor was the biggest thing, but we've continued to automate where we don't need people to make food. In manufacturing, as I said, we will automate that we don't need people to do assembly line work. We don't need people to move stuff from point A to point B, okay? We don't need people to process middle management of papers and data. It's all automated. We don't need experts to tell us what the tax code is or what the rules and regs are. So you should be very worried if you think that you're going to have and get that gold watch. It used to be you went to a company in 40 years, at the end of it, they hand you a gold watch and thank you for giving up your life. And I ask people, are you living life or just paying bills until you die? And really stop and think about it, because it's the most basic and existential question. If you don't love your job, if you don't like what you're doing, unless you really, really believe in reincarnation, you're giving up your whole life for no purpose. And the purpose of life is to live a life of purpose. So there's nothing wrong with having a 9-to-5 job. Just make sure that your job is solving something and you are adding to that solution. And if you don't feel you are, you're not going to be able to duck and cover and ride a career out. Even as shocking as it sounds, governments and public service will get more efficient. It has to, because we can't continue to expand taxes in a way that it goes. And then the last one, which is really a positive, is everybody was worried about global warming and the environment and pollution and, should we have carbon tax credits? And none of these things work because basic economics drives everything at the end of the day. Well, this year, for the first time, solar has become so efficient financially that solar is now cheaper than gas or coal. So anybody's economy that's based on coal or oil, countries that are basically just large gas stations, their economy's over. They're going to be disrupted. And so now's the time for those employees to come up with solutions and new ideas.
So this is great, Jay, and to build on what you just said, so if companies need to compete in that accelerated environment of innovation, how do you get to, I think that's the challenge I see, in many companies, is how do you take employees to all of a sudden, become sort of entrepreneurs and thinking, besides reading your book?
Well, that's why I wrote Disrupt You, and for the price of a cappuccino, you can change your life. But I've been an entrepreneur at 3 major corporations. I was brought in to completely disrupt and change them. And when there's buy-in from the top, it's the greatest job in the world. When there's not, I hear you folks, it's the most frustrating thing because you're just going to scratch your head and say they don't get it. The key to changing a company is you have to change the culture that is afraid of making mistakes. If you don't make any mistakes, it's because you're not trying anything new. Success comes from exploring what hasn't been explored and trying new and finding new solutions. When the music industry knew that it was over for selling round things, anybody that walked into my office that had a new idea, I tried. Internet jukeboxes, internet radios, streaming, subscription. They were any wacky. So at a moment, and this was 15 years ago, when you couldn't get a single person to pay $1 to download a song, a guy came in, Ralph Simon, with the idea of what if you sold 10 seconds of a song for $2? You can't sell a whole song for $1. What are you talking about? You're crazy. Ringtones. What if you could make your phone have a custom ring? What if you could make a different ring for each of your friends so you know who it is the second it rings? Well, first year of ringtones did $1.6 billion. No one in 100 years of recorded music had ever thought of selling 10 seconds of a song because there was no device that made sense for. So the whole point is there's always new opportunity. And in your biggest companies, those answers are already known by the people that they're not listening to.
Great.
So either take your idea to your boss or go out that door and go crowdfund and take the idea and start your own future.
That's a good advice. So